My name is Suzana Augustino from Sokoine University of Agriculture, and I'm here to share with you a research we did on the sustainability of the African blackwood, or Dalbergia Melanoxylon, in Tanzania. And we thought, because when you look into the theme of this symposium, it's all about culture of wood, historical utilization, and also future sustainability. And now, when you look into Dalbergia Melanoxylon, which is a common species here, used for caving, but also it have other uses, we thought we can have something. But by profession, I'm a forester, and I work at Sokoine as a senior lecturer in the Department of Forestry Products Utilization. And I've decided to break this presentation into 4 sections. I'll have a brief background and also a brief on the methodology we used, but later much will be on the findings, conclusion, and way forward. So if I start by the background, there are so many names for the species Dalbergia Melanoxylon, but in Swahili here we call it mpingo. And the common name ebon is also in Mozambique and other parts of Africa. I saw even yesterday people are referring to ebon tree. And also sometimes they call it the East African blackwood. So I'll be using all the names where you find I'm using mpingo, but I'm talking on the same species. So this species is regarded as the national tree of Tanzania. It's among of the 22 reserved species. It's a national tree that harvesting of Dalbergia has to be with a special permit. You don't have to cut it just like that. You need a permit because it's reserved. And when you come to its growth, it's extremely slow. To attain a merchantable size and a good quality for proper utilization, it needs 70 to 100 years. And the species is highly valued traded timber in the world. And currently, it's harvested for international trade, mainly from Tanzania and Mozambique. I'm talking about Tanzania and Mozambique because if you go through literature now, and in terms of distribution, it's only 2 countries which are remaining with the stock. Where you find the mpingo tree, whether it's in Kenya or Uganda, the source has to be either Mozambique or southern part of Tanzania. But despite the value and importance of this species, it has until recently received little attention in terms of conservation. And that was the driver really for our research. That should we look now into the aspect of conserving this species because of its value, leave apart the caving, but also it has some medicinal values, and also it can be used to produce a valuable and durable furniture. So in Tanzania, most of the blackwood information suggested that the occurrence of the species is becoming more scattered and its abundance is decreasing. So the study aimed to analyze the current market of the species and also looking much into its long-term sustainability. And this was in selected parts of Tanzania, particularly in areas where they are still claiming that the species is found in abundance. And we identified the key regions with commercially viable quantities or stock, and also the key hectares and the trade destinations. And also, we established the likely stock in terms of annual harvest for future sustainability. And our methodology mostly relied on surveys and interviews. The interviews was with the primary stakeholders, including the sawmillers, the cavers themselves, and also the exporters. And it was mainly in such regions as Kilwa, Lindi, Mtwara, Dar es Salaam, Tanga, and Morogoro. And also key informants like staff from the WWF. There is an NGO, the Mpingo Conservation and Development Initiative, and also Kilimanyika organization and other government authorities were also visited for interview. But also we supplemented this with extensive literature review. So when you come to findings, for Tanzania now, the regions with commercially viable quantities are Lindi, Mtwara, Pwani, Tanga, Manyara, and Morogoro. And you can see the districts where you can find at least a large stock of Dalbergia Melanoxylon. And of particular interest was the chief suppliers areas, Morogoro, Pwani, Tanga, and Manyara. In Tanzania, these remain as chief suppliers of the species for cavers. And in Morogoro, I remember at one time we were trying to probe why the species is still found in abundance when you go in the wild. And one of the issues was the cultural aspects, which is associated with the conservation of the species. People in Morogoro areas are not allowed to cut Dalbergia for firewood, for charcoal, or anything. And they claim that cutting that tree, you'll be inviting lions in your area. And I think that was the way of protecting the species. And I wasn't surprised when I found that Morogoro was among the chief suppliers of the species. But also, these areas supplement the supply of blackwood that would have otherwise been accrued from Kilwa sources each year. Because the largest stock is in the southern part of Tanzania, particularly Kilwa. But Morogoro, Pwani, and Tanga, and Manyara are also complementing. When you come to the estimated stock now of African blackwood, I've just highlighted, if you go into the estimated annual stock, you will see that the current stock, this was by the year 2011, it was standing at 75,392. I have to use this one. It was standing at 75,392, but the harvestable stock was 58,203. But also the mean was found to be 4.54, and the diameter in the field was ranging from 3.8 to 89.8. And this was only for the selected village forestry reserve in the southern part of Tanzania. It was Lindi and Kilwa. And we have to bear in mind that the current stock of this species is coming from the wild. It has neither been promoted for plantation in other areas. The market players for the species in Tanzania, we have the harvesters, who are the local communities, and they harvest it for income generation because the wood is valuable. It is having higher demand, both local and international, so sometimes they harvest for income generation. And also we have the sawmillers also, we identified them, who are also making furnitures, and mostly the furnitures are for export. The cavers as well, and this is basically the Makonde caving. The Mpingo had the history from the Makonde people of Mtwara. And it's probably the best known artwork which is produced in Tanzania. And when you will have the tour at Mwenge, you will see most of the cavers are really using this black wood. And as I said, in Swahili we call it mpingo, and it's one of the favorite materials for caving. The Makonde artwork, this is both traditional and contemporary, reflecting a tribal past as well as modern response to urban life. Currently, you find that cavers have been modifying their work. But also one of the things which really made us to go with this study was the fact that when you visit the cave sites, particularly at Mwenge, you find now they are not using not only the African blackwood, they are also using other woody species. And then we thought probably there is a problem. Some were claiming that mpingo is disappearing, mpingo is becoming scarce. That's why we have to opt for alternatives. And the Makonde people, they utilize their tribal myths and stories as inspiration for the masterful work. So most of their work was having something resembling their culture, whether it was a cup probably used by the elders, or a chair or a stool which was used by the elderman under special occasion or ceremonies. So the Makonde artwork, you will agree with me, it's admirable worldwide. And we found that 77% of the cavers were based in Dar es Salaam, and particularly the Mwenge Cavers Cooperative. You will see it if you will have the tour the day after tomorrow. And also we have other areas like Bagamoyo and Kisarawe. When we come to exporters as market players as well for this species, we found that the figure has been increasing. From the record, by the year 2001, only 6 companies were exporting the products from the African blackwood. But by the year 2010-2011, the number was 29. And many of the products which are exported are in terms of carvings and also the clarinet sets. And when you come to export countries, we found that Germany, China, South Africa, Paraguay, Slovenia, United Kingdom, Finland, Netherlands, USA, and the others listed were the destination where these products were going, and particularly Kenya. But the bad thing is that the trade of this species is done illegally. As I started to mention that this is a national tree, it is reserved, you have to harvest it under a special permit, but illegally that business is still going on. And sometimes Kenyans, they claim to have the mpingo, but for sure, currently they don't have stock for that. On the annual removals of the mpingo tree in Tanzania, harvesting of the blackwood relies exclusively from the natural, and we estimated 4.48 to be the annual harvesting rate. And also, what I can say here is that the stock we observed, it's estimated to last for 13 consecutive years, if you consider a zero replenishment of the stock. Or it can go even over 26 years for the whole region of Lindi. Now, when you come to sustainability, although the mpingo is not in any immediate danger of biological extinction, researchers have indicated that the species is facing critical commercial extinction in the near future. And this case has already happened to our neighbor in Kenya. And if you go to the IUCN red list, it's grouped among the close to threatened species. And therefore, attention in terms of conservation is needed. As I'm remaining with 3 minutes, let me go to what we concluded. What we concluded is that African blackwood in commercially viable quantities is found in the southern region of Tanzania, particularly Lindi and Mtwara. And communities adjacent to these resources are involved in logging activities, working for the sawmills to earn and supplement their incomes, and thereby improving their livelihood. And the key market players are both the harvesters, the sawmillers, the cavers, the exporters, and also the exporters who normally process the wood before they take it. And we found that it's really important now for the blackwood processors, which are including the loggers, the sawmillers, and cavers, to be educated so that they can integrate their work, integrate their activities in order to make more efficient use of the materials which are harvested from the wild. Because when you visit the sawmills, you find so many wastes, which could be used by cavers. But then for cavers who are not using proper techniques and equipments, you find also they are wasting part of the wood. So integration could make a sustainable way of preserving the trees in the world, but also promotion of caving, such small items such as buttons, earrings, pen, and openers could salvage that would be the waste generated during the processing. And also we say that African blackwood areas should be protected from illegal logging. As I said, really the business is still going on. Probably the stock we recorded in 2011 is not there, if someone will go now, because the business is ongoing. And also the early burning of blackwood areas should be encouraged and made an annual exercise, because by doing this one, we encourage higher regeneration of the species. And also the use of saws by loggers instead of axes to minimize the wood waste in form of chopping and splinters has to be encouraged to improve the working condition. And there should be a proper record keeping for the country's timber export. Because I remember when we were doing this work, we found it difficult really on the records, how much has been exported from Tanzania, especially from the sources. It was difficult. So we need to have that one so as to adhere to the clarity, continuity with time, and also to be consistent in terms of the units which are utilized. And lastly, there should be a nationwide sensitization to embark on planting African blackwood. As we saw from this theme, wood is good, but for sure the African blackwood is good for both, for caving, it's also good for furniture. Its furniture is durable and valued all over the world. And these plantations, and the planting could be in plantations or agroforestry systems. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attention.